We sat in silence for a second before he spoke again. I guess his plan worked, he said, leaning back against the booth, folding his arms across his chest. Not as well as you think, I replied. He narrowed his eyes. Are you going to continue to be cryptic? Or would you like to just come right out and tell me? He questioned. I knew he believed Maxine and I slept together. No doubt Mikey and Lorenzo filled his head with those lies. Why Maxine would tell him we did had me stumped. Maxine and I didn't sleep together, I informed him. He cocked his head to the side. Then why did she tell me you two did? I honestly have no clue, I replied. We didn't sleep together. I have no reason to lie about that. Maybe Maxine asked you to lie. I laughed. Trust me, I'm the last person she wants to ask a favor from. She hates me right now. He raised an eyebrow. Then why are you telling me this? Because I felt guilty. I regretted I was ever involved in this plot to hurt Maxine. Now I'm here to get the truth out and make things right. I had to get the stink of this off of me. I don't like being used, I answered. He glared at me for a few seconds, sizing me up before he spoke. If you two didn't sleep together, why would she lie and tell me you did? I assumed it was a rhetorical question. If it wasn't, I had no answer for him. I just knew there were people hell-bent on not seeing them together. He needed to know everything. Welcome back to my series on how to start your novel. Okay, what I just did there was read to you from my book, Prohibited, Final Betrayal. Basically, I want to show you some of the dialogue that I had in the book because today we're going to be discussing dialogue. One of the things we're going to talk about is how to make your dialogue authentic, realistic, and sound like regular people are talking, or regular aliens or regular vampires, something of that sort. So we're going to get started with basically going over authentic voices. So when you write, you want to make sure that the voices of your characters sounds like real regular people, that they sound authentic. And what I mean by that is basically, okay, so if you're having a conversation between two people, it lends its way into character development. So you want to start with making sure that you know your people. You know the things that they would say, how they think, the things that they would do, and you want to make sure that these are things that any normal person in their situation would do. So when we talked in the first video about character development, I discussed how I get to know my characters. I basically have to know first, middle, last name. I need to know everything there is to know about them, their age, their race, their sex, their sexual orientation, their basically the favorite food, favorite color. Like, I go that deep because I really want to know these people. I want to know if they had any trauma in their life, if they had lack of trauma, because that also too can skew someone's bias on life or the things that they say or the way they interact with other people. And these are, you have to look at these characters, these are real people. Yes, they're real people. And when someone reads your novel, they're going to feel, they want them to feel like real people. These people are that they want to get to know as well. These are people that they want to have emotional reactions to, whether they love them or hate them. You want to make sure that people feel a certain way about your characters, whether it be good or bad. So an authentic voice is basically if you have a character in a car accident, you want to make sure that what they say in their car accident or basically what they think or the way they interact with other people in the car is something that a normal person would do. Like I said, you want them to be real people, and that goes back to character development. And you want to make sure that these are real scenarios, because when you have real, authentic scenarios, you should be able to produce real, authentic dialogue. And I know some people write fantasy, they write about vampires, they write about different things. This works for you too, because yeah, the scenario might be something weird, like your character can fly or is a superhero or something like that. But you still want to make sure that your scenario is something that fits your story. So it can not necessarily mean that it's going to be authentic in the sense of the word of uh, regular everyday events. It could be something very much out there. But as long as it's something that fits your story and it's a real scenario for your fantasy, then your dialogue should be able to fit that as well. Um, it should be able to fit the world that they live in and the view that they see. Because that's basically what it breaks down to, the world that your characters live in and what they see and what they can bring to those readers in that scenario. You want them to make sure that make their world alive. Their characters are there to make their world alive. And that can happen with the things that they say to each other, to themselves, to their cat, to their dog, whatever that they say to each other, because this could be a children's book and the character could be a bear, a dog, a cat. It could be, something that's not human. And basically, you still want the dialogues they have with whoever they interact with to be as authentic as possible, because that draws your reader in. It's all about taking what you feel, how your characters feel, and presenting it to readers so that they can also see and feel the same way that you feel about it, or see where you're coming from. One of the things that I do, and I used to think it was weird when I was growing up and writing poetry and things like that, was I used to have those dialogues between my characters by myself. Okay, so let me explain. My characters are real people to me. These are people that are here, but I want to make sure that they are here for my readers. And basically, I have those dialogues with myself. I used to use a tape recorder where I would sit it down, press record, and I would be me. I would be my character, my main character, or whoever is talking. And I would also be who they're talking to. And I would just, not really knowing what's happening in that chapter, or not really understanding, I would just let it go and let it flow. And basically let those characters talk to each other. It may not have anything to do with the chapter that I'm writing, but I would just have them, feel things and talk to each other. I'm trying to find a better way to explain that to you, but basically I'm talking to myself, basically. And trying to find, a spot where those characters are really engaging with each other. And I would record it, because I can't, it's hard to write as you're doing it. It's just kind of like role playing. You're pretending to be one character and pretending to be the other character they're talking to. And you just try to have real life conversations with them. Good morning, how's your day? You start off that way, and then you get into deep scenarios. So like a good portion of my dialogue here, I did it by myself, role playing. And I would be the main character, Maxine, who's in this book. I would be the main character, and I would be her love interest. And we would basically just have a deep conversation about where we want this relationship to go. Or because of my outlining, I may know chapter 1, this is what I want to happen. So I basically just discuss what, between them in dialogue, what I think they'll be discussing. And I've noticed that it has helped me with figuring out how to make more realistic dialogue. I know that another, like the last video that I did basically discussed how to basically not only get authentic voices for people, but you go through your chapter and you basically write down what the character thinks, what the character feels, how the character reacts to certain situations, and you write down dialogue. You write down some dialogue, and how I do my dialogue for that. I didn't say it in that video, but I'm saying it here as I do the role playing. And you just basically have these dialogues with yourself, and it helps you to make sure that they're more realistic. So this is my video on dialogue. And I just wanted to basically touch base with you and let you know that while you're writing chapters 1 through 5, or while you're getting in the groove of writing, that this is a way that you can make sure that your dialogue in those chapters is going smoothly. Make sure your dialogue is of real people with real scenarios. For me, I write erotic romance, and it's not fantasy or anything like that. These are basically just regular people in their regular daily lives, and a catastrophe happens or an event happens, and they have to react to that. And the only way you can do that is to know your characters. And that goes back to character development. Character development is all within this, because you need to know them. You need to have a good relationship with your characters, and you need to let them speak and let them say how they feel and let them say what they want to say to each other. Because I've noticed that whenever I try to stifle their voices, and I try to make them say what I want them to say, I get writer's block, or I can't write. So you don't want to get stuck because you're trying to mold your characters in a different direction when this is someplace that they want to go, or stifle their voice. I know it might sound weird talking about them as if, you know, they're sitting right next to you or they're sitting across from you, but that's how you get good dialogue. That's how you get good voices from your characters, is by pretending that they're sitting next to you, pretending that they're across from you. I like to interview my characters. I like to ask them questions, and I do it out loud as if, you know, I'm back in my journalism major days, and I'm interviewing somebody, or back when I was a reporter and I'm interviewing somebody. I write down a ton of questions about them, and I ask them these questions, and I let them answer. And I do this for majority of my characters. I don't necessarily do it for some, you know, side characters. I go into a little bit of development, but in order to get their authentic voices, you have to know them, and that's very important for dialogue. So this video today is about dialogue. My next video is going to be some other tips on how to get through those first 5 chapters, and make sure that you get your story moving, because sometimes for me personally, the first 5 chapters are the hardest 5 to write, other than the last chapter. But normally I have the ending already planned in my head like a video, so that tends to be a little bit easier. But the first 5 chapters tend to be the hardest ones for me to write. So this is just some helps and some tips to basically get you off and running on your first 5 chapters. Dialogue is one of them, and I'm going to come back in another video with something else special for you. But if you haven't, go ahead and subscribe. If you so choose to, please share this video, because I'm sure that it will help other writers get better with their dialogue. If you have not, purchase Prohibited 1, 2, and 3, and you can see how I work through my dialogue and basically see how I got my novels completed. And these are the tips that I do. Everything that I'm discussing in these videos are things that I do. And this is my process on getting a completed novel. So again, subscribe, share, hit the little bell so that you will be alerted to new videos that I post out. And make sure to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as Donnee Patrese. See you on the next video.